Basketball fans, welcome back. So in this video I'll be talking about the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup pre-qualifying tournament, and I'm going to look at the teams that played in Rwanda and the teams that played in Mexico. So the teams that played in Rwanda are Senegal and Rwanda. So Rwanda were defending home court, and in Mexico we had Mozambique and Mali. So unfortunately Mozambique and Mali, they didn't manage to crack the semifinals, and Mozambique didn't win a game and they went 0-3, and Mali only won one game. But in this video we'll be talking about Senegal's performance. So Senegal, as per recording this video, they lost in the finals to Hungary, and Hungary have notched that ticket to the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup 2026 qualifiers. So these are the pre-qualifiers. They've managed to get a ticket to go to the qualifiers. And to get to Hungary, Senegal had to beat Rwanda, and they beat them in a very, very clutch game. And I must say, it was a game that when I watched it, I was just shocked and surprised at how that game was going for both teams. But in this video, we'll just be doing a recap of what happened. So in the Senegal versus Hungary game, in the first time they met in the first game, and Senegal one-upped Hungary and they won by 2 points. And this game, I must say, when I watched this game, I didn't have too much expectations like that, because I felt like we had to see the first game, how it's going to go about it, how it's going to happen. But to my surprise, we saw Senegal winning, and they won this game by 2 points, 63-61. And Senegal dominated for the first half. In the first half, it was just a Senegal affair, and they were able to go ahead and pull away and win this game. But when it came to the fourth, you could see both teams were shooting at a similar clip. They had 19 points apiece, and Hungary led in the third quarter, and they only held Senegal to only 7 points. And it was something that I must say wasn't that much of a surprise, because if you look at the whole flow of the game, you could see Senegal were just dominated in the whole game, and they had the biggest lead of 14, and there were only 2 lead changes in this whole game. And Senegal was just holding serve pretty well. But the most concerning thing was how they were not able to just learn from and build upon this game, because had they understood that there was a high likelihood that they would have met Hungary, they would have prepared differently. But they went in with the same type of game style, and it was insane. And looking at how this tournament is, every single game counts. And Hungary, when they saw what they needed to do and what they needed to change, I know they kept it in mind. And even when they went ahead throughout the whole game, all the whole games, you could see that they still had Senegal in mind. And when they met in the finals, it was just game over, because it was such a one-sided game, and we're going to look at it moving forward. But in the next game, Senegal matched up against Brazil, and they won this game 69-59. And our people who are playing, especially for Senegal, especially in efficiency per game, you had Nderitu. She led in efficiency per game with 21, and she led in points per game with 16.6 points overall. And she also led in rebounds per game. Assist was Sierra Dillard. She was dishing dimes, and she was just facilitating on the offense. But when it comes to that Brazilian game, this was the game that I must say it was a game that went on well for Senegal, especially when they had that poor start. They didn't have a very strong start. They started off a bit slow. They had 14 points, but in the second quarter, that's when they broke out. They had 21, and in the third, they had 16, and in the fourth, they had 8. But looking at what Brazil were doing, they were not able to withstand the Senegal's punch, especially looking at the way the game was overall flow of the game. You could see Brazil dominated in the first quarter and a bit of the second quarter. But in the second, third, and fourth, especially in the fourth, that's when Senegal just managed to pull away completely. And this was expected, because the way Senegal came out in the second, that was something that was expected. And in points per game, you could see Sierra Dillard, she led with 19 points. We had Nderitu with 11 boards. And Sierra Dillard, she was just dishing the dime, dishing the rock pretty well with 7 assists. And Nderitu led with 2 blocks. And Sierra Dillard, not only was she a leader in the assists, but also she had 4 steals. So this was a game that Senegal were just destined to win. I must say that, because the way they came out and played, it was actually a good game to see. Then they matched up against the Philippines, and this Filipino game, it was just an absolute masterclass, because there was no weak spots seen from the Senegal side, and Senegal dominated this game through and through from start to finish. A very good first quarter with 22 points, 23 points second quarter, and they finished up the second half very well. They held the Philippines to a quarter low 11 points in the third, and they just dominated in the fourth 23. So Senegal, this was not a game that they're going to lose at all, because they just dominated. It was a blowout win. 87-62 was the final score. And Ndioma Kane, her efficiency was 23. We had her also, Ndioma Kane, leading with 21 points. She also was very instrumental in this game. In the previous game against Brazil, she led in rebounds, but in this case, she led in points. In rebounds, you got Nene Awandiaye. She had 11 boards, and in the assists, Sierra Dillard was just leading. In the blocks, Ndioma Kane leading not only in points but also blocks with 2 blocks, and Yacine Diop, she had 2 steals. So overall, this was a game that the Philippines stood no chance. The only chance that they had was the way they started off really well, but Senegal were able just to pull away. Senegal had the biggest lead of 28, and they had a biggest scoring run of 8-0, and they led for 31 minutes, and it was not a close thing. And the only 3 lead changes, and those 3 lead changes only happened in the first quarter. There was no stopping Senegal at all. And shooting-wise, Senegal shot pretty well, 47% shooting from the field, and the most impressive was how they shot and how they capitalized on the 2-point field goals. They shot 52% from the field, 31% from downtown, and 52% from the line. And on that performance, they were able to not only take apart that Filipino team, but there was no stopping them. And at that point, they were 3-0. Then in the semis, they matched up against Rwanda. So this is a game that I followed very closely, because it was an African clash. It was an African affair, and one team had to go. And Rwanda, they left everything on the floor, but it wasn't enough. And Senegal were able to beat them to notch a spot in the finals. And in this game, when I saw it live, there was something that really caught my eye. Sierra Dillard really struggled hitting shots in the clutch, and her mentality, especially when the game is too close and she was being forced to the line, she was not able to focus and concentrate and hit those free throws. And she shot 4 of 11 from the line, which was very, very sad. But Rwanda, the way they started, 23 first quarter points to Senegal 15. But this game was just a seesaw, and Rwanda not only beat Senegal in the first and fourth quarters, but Senegal were able to withstand that run, and they were able to outscore Rwanda in the third quarter. They had a very good quarter high 25 points to Rwanda's 12. So this was what made the game very close. And in the fourth quarter, it's not too much about scoring in the field, but the game was decided on the line, and it was on Senegal's side, because Rwanda, they were really fouling, really fouled a lot. And in this game, I must say, Senegal just, atrocious, especially when it came to the line. 13 out of 29, that's 44%. That was not a good look, especially for a clutch game. And the person that I even point my finger on is Sierra Dillard. She really struggled. She was 36% from the free throws. And those free throws, if she was able to make them, and if they went in, Senegal would have been able to even beat Rwanda by at least 7 to 8 points. But it is what it is. In the intensity of the game, it gets very difficult, especially when the whole crowd is just jeering you while on the line. But anyway, Senegal were able to get the job done, and they notched that ticket into the finals. But if you look at the efficiency per game, Ndioma Kane, she was there, she led. Then Yacine Diop, she had 15 points, and she was very instrumental in Senegal winning, because she was hitting everything. She was able to hit very good timely field goals, especially mid-range. She was able to just pick up her spots pretty well, and she had a very good shooting form, so she was able to do that. Sierra Dillard, she led with 7 boards, and Matty Fall, she had 4 assists, and Ndioma Kane, she had only 1 block. But Bella from Rwanda, she had 3. Nderitu, she had 4 steals. So this game, from the first quarter all the way to the fourth quarter, it was just a seesaw affair. You can see Rwanda dominated in the first and second quarters, but in the third and fourth, Senegal were able to just pull away, and they were just able to go ahead and win this game. And it was amazing that this game only had 3 lead changes, and the game was very close, and a winner would have even been decided. No one even would have even known the winner. It was because it was very difficult to call this game. And this was one of those performances that I really, really looked forward to. But the game overall wasn't as entertaining, but it was just enough to just the other team just get a win. Like Senegal just had to get a win there. But it was very disappointing for Rwanda because this was a game that they were supposed to defend home court. I know they defended home court for the first 2 games, but the way they lost to Great Britain, it really, really set them off, and they got brutalized in embarrassing fashion. And the way Rwanda got embarrassed, mentally they were not there. In this Senegal game, they would have won this game, but they really, really fouled a lot in this game, and it was actually something that really, really set them back. And even when it comes to like the overall turnovers that the Rwandese team had, they had 32 total turnovers. So this is something that was very, very concerning. I don't think that they would have dropped this game if they even limited their turnovers to at least 20, because they were not even taking care of the ball. A lot of travels were called, a lot of things. I mean, and they also had 24 personal fouls. So lack of discipline on offense was something that was very concerning. And their top scorers virtually were not there. Bella, she played 30 minutes, but look at her performance. She didn't drop like the monster double she's used to. As the game got intense, she was not able to do anything. The only person who was able to score solid points, and she played the whole game, is then Ineza Sifa. So she played 40 minutes. She played the whole game. She scored 21 points. She was 50% on field, 7 of 14. And she had a solid game, but her 6 turnovers and 3 personal fouls really, really stifled their offense, and really stifled a lot of things. I mean, it was just an embarrassing game from the Rwandese side. But Senegal, they were able to pull through, and Senegal did not hold back, and they were able to go ahead and win this game at the clutch, despite not having like insane stats being pulled up. I mean, a lot of buckets going in. But looking at even the turnovers that they had 24 turnovers and 27 personal fouls. So both teams, Rwanda and Senegal, are too physical and are not paying attention on defense. And especially the turnovers, some of them were just inexcusable. Traveling violations, out of bounds. You're just not taking care of the basketball. That was the main problem. And both teams were just doing a very poor job at taking care of the basketball. But in the last and final game that happened yesterday, that was the most embarrassing game that Senegal has played. And they lost every single quarter to Hungary. Hungary were ready for this game, and they were ready to revenge on Senegal. And Hungary, they went ahead and punched that ticket, and they won that ticket to the qualifiers, the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifiers happening in 2026. They got that ticket, and it was so embarrassing to see how the Senegalese team played. The Senegalese team did not pose any resistance. Though it was just a dud game from Ciela Dillard. She only had 6 points, 7 assists. She only had 3 steals in there. She had 1 personal foul, 1 turnover, but she was a plus-minus for -10, so she did virtually nothing. Marty Fall did nothing. I mean, Sabiu Ndiaye, she did virtually nothing. On 9 minutes played, nothing. Then we had Nderitu. She was the only player that scored double digits in this game, but it was too late because Hungary were just a better team, and it was very embarrassing to see Africans not be able to defend home court. It started with Rwanda losing to Senegal, and Senegal were the last line of defense for Africa, and they let a European team go ahead and win. I mean, getting beat both home and away. Like, this was the only chance that Africa will have at least stamp authority and be able to grab a ticket. But in the end, they just kept losing. And Hungary just came in and just walked Senegal, and they won this game in a blowout. 63-47 was the final score. It was very embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing for Senegal. Nderitu, she had an efficiency of 21. Despite even having an efficiency of 21, the other players in the Senegalese squad were virtually useless and unplayable. There was nothing there. I mean, it was such a coming out party, and Senegal was just not ready. They were just not ready for Hungary, and Hungary were ready for Senegal, because looking at that first game, that Hungary versus Senegal, the way Senegal came out with that 2-point win, Hungary was determined to, if they by any chance they met Senegal, they knew what adjustments they had to make. And this was that game that was not even close at all. They started off close, but there was no stopping Hungary. At some point in the fourth, I just knew for a fact this game was over, and Hungary just piling on the points. And the biggest lead Hungary had was 22. The biggest scoring run was 11, and the time leading for Hungary was 30 minutes. And they never stopped because they shot 39.7% from the field, 47% from the 2-point field goals, and 84% from the line. So you can see Senegal, despite sending the Hungarian team to the line, I mean, they were able to not only knock down majority of their free throws, but they were able to at least make the game out of Senegal's reach, and it was so embarrassing. And that's just about it. So Hungary, they got that ticket, and they got a lock on that ticket in Rwanda, in African soil in Rwanda. And I must say it was a very embarrassing outing, especially from Senegal and Rwanda. And honestly, this is not how African basketball should be. There's a long way to go when it comes to Senegal and Rwanda, because the way Africans play, they are very good at, playing against each other. But when they play against a European team, they just get outclassed majority of the time. And the African game has not evolved to in a way that can compete with the rest of the world, because you only compete against Africans. But if you're able to make the adjustments to compete against the whole world, that is when you'll have Senegal and Rwanda will have had the chance to beat a European team. Like Senegal had their shot against Hungary and they failed in the final game to decide who's going to go to the qualifiers. But anyway, it is what it is. So Senegal, they laid an egg in this game, and it was very embarrassing. I must say, I was very disappointed when I saw this. And at some point, I was even thinking of clicking off the video, because I just knew the game was decided, and Senegal had no answer. And that you can't even put even an excuse on it, because if you look at how both of these teams played, Senegal and Rwanda, you'll just see that even despite having the facilities to be able to play, Senegal, they have the Dakar Arena that they train at. You can see Rwanda, they have the BK Arena that they train at, which is an Olympic standard arena. Even like other countries don't even have those levels of facilities, but skill-wise and their overall basketball IQ was something that they didn't have, and they just got taken to school by Hungary. You see, even prior to even Rwanda matching up against Senegal, the Great Britain took the Rwandese team to school, and they're not able to do anything. So, yeah, man, I mean, it's two embarrassing games, and Hungary were able to take that ticket in African soil. So I need to emphasize that further, because a lot of people don't understand the magnitude of this loss. And this is a loss that, in the grand scheme of things, man, it just puts a very, very bad light in African basketball. Because even despite having the facilities, our basketball IQ, the way we look at games, there's a long way to go. And it's a continental problem, because we saw that even in Nigeria in the Olympics, making excuses as to why they can't beat Team USA. And you can see Hungary came in African soil, and they beat Senegal. I mean, it's embarrassing, totally embarrassing, unacceptable. And honestly, I don't agree with anyone who's going to come in the comments and try to make excuses as to why Senegal failed, saying that Hungary are the better team. But they are playing in African soil. Will it be different if Senegal played went to play in Budapest? Would it have changed anything? No, I wouldn't. I don't think so, because our African basketball IQ and the way Africans approach basketball games is beyond embarrassing and deplorable. But anyway, it is what it is. So if you guys like the video. I know this has been a long one, and like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified. I'm out. Peace.